to Qual's perspective. I stand on Victor's shoulder, at the far side of the starboard gallery from the entrance to the gymnasium aboard my ship. Around us are all the Triple M's, Twiller, and all but 4 of the ODR contractors. Standing facing towards us in the entrance is Emiko, one of the missing 4. Watching from the walkways above us are most of the rest of my crew, some looking a little nervous of those coming aboard. To avoid either side feeling as if the other had an unfair advantage, or greater prestige, the arrival of the Swift Claw from the Vrakhand capital and the ambassadorial craft from the compound had to be timed to be perfectly simultaneous. Right now, Ambassador Yesh is landing the craft with the Twig delegation in the rear loading bay beside her husband's starfighter. Ambassador Ong is aboard the Swift Claw with the Vrakhand delegation, docking at the ship's bow. In almost the same instant, the doors, a few hundred meters to our left and right, both slide open. The Vrakhand, having such an enormous footprint created by their many sprawling legs, currently all tipped in corky wooden shoes to prevent them from tearing up the floor of my ship, are only able to pass through the door in 2s and 3s, making it take a comparatively long time for them to all make it through. The Twig, being one of the smallest sentient species, not of the 6 emergent, intelligent colonial kinds, are able to all make it through the door at once. They are a rainbow of greens, blues and yellows in their skin and hair tones. Heading for the Vrakhand Coliseum, flanked by her father and her new lifemate, and led by Ambassador Ong, is Representative Kakoan of the Vrakhand, dressed in rich silk clothes and looking like a formidable warrior, even unarmed. Heading the Twig, flanked by her half-brother and her tribe elder, and led by Ambassador Yesh, is Representative Vig of the Twig, her face set and serious and her yellow eyes burning with intensity. She does not have the dagger made from the foot of one of the Emperor's daughters at her hip, but, it bears remembering, she's the one who gave Kakoan that nearly fatal throat injury. She is no less a formidable woman than her counterpart. The ambassadors set the pace, walking toward each other at an identical speed, even if Ong's much longer stride makes him appear to be moving quite a lot slower than his wife. The knot of Twig reaches the center of the starboard gallery at the same time as the head of the Vrakhand column. The representatives stare each other down for what feels like a long time. Then, all 8 of her eyes closing, Kakoan bends forward, lowering her head and thorax to the Twig girl in a bow. There's a moment of hesitation, then Vig returns the gesture, bending at the waist. The 2 women straighten back up and begin leading their respective delegations into the gymnasium behind the ambassadors. The single file line of 50 Twig makes its way inside relatively quickly. The 50 Vrakhand take a while longer to pass through the bottleneck. Once the last of them are inside, Victor and the others follow. As I ride his shoulder inside, and we pass through the regular section, in which no one has been able to exercise for 2 days, while it was sanitized and deodored, we head for the Terran section. All the heavy equipment has been cleared away by the Terrans, into Victor's gun range, and the area has likewise been sterilized and cleansed of the much more pungent smell of Terran perspiration. Up against the wall to the right as we enter is a small table, at which are sat Emiko and the ambassadors, and behind which is stood Fran in full armor, minus her destroyed helmet, the final contractor who was missing, all facing out into the room. To their right, at the far side from us, is a long line of low tables with a row of white lights on top, corresponding to a line of small seats behind, onto which the Twig are in the process of seating themselves. Across from them are a series of mats, laid out in rows on the floor, each with a nano-forged nameplate in front of it, written in the vertical, webbed, Vrakhand script, and illuminated with white lights. Not having a script, the Twig could not be given assigned seats, but something tells me they prefer it that way. The one exception is Vig, sitting on the far side of the line, closest to the arbitrator's table and opposite Kakoan, at the far side of the front row in the Vrakhand seating, the closest on that side. Some of the Vrakhand women, not being literate, are having to ask around their compatriots to find their seats. I am carried to the stands on the left side of the room by Victor, along with the other spectators. He seats himself on one of the benches near the front, and I hop off his shoulder to nestle onto the bench beside him, giving a view of the peace talks across the arena from us. A few of my crew who are watching from the walkways take the opportunity to sneak in to observe this historic moment before it begins. There follow several minutes of everyone organising themselves. Once everyone has found their seats, Emiko stands from the middle of the table between the husband and wife ambassadors. Greetings all, and thank you sincerely for your agreement to participate in these peace talks. I'm sure everyone recognizes myself as Dr. Emiko Smiles Miyazaki, this woman as Ambassador Lamo Crane Yesh, and her husband as Ambassador Nungong Ong. We will be acting as the arbitrators of this negotiation. Comes the woman's magnified voice. First, a few notes on procedure. I need to take this opportunity to remind you that these talks are being filmed for posterity, so if you aren't comfortable with your image being recorded, we offer you the opportunity to leave now. No one makes to leave, or having been appraised of the recording beforehand. A few moments of silence before, Good, continues Emiko. I just needed to check. So, in front of you, you will see either a lit white bulb, if you are Twig, or a lit white nameplate if you are Vrakhand. If you press that down with your hand, the light should turn from white to red. Pressing it again should turn it back to white. Could everyone take a moment to make sure that their light is working and that they are able to operate it as intended? A few moments follow, as all the summit attendees turn their lights from white to red and back, some multiple times, some needing to double-check the instructions with their neighbours. Any issues? Asks Emiko, looking around. No one raises any. Perfect. The purpose of the changeable lights is to give you the ability to indicate whether you wish to speak, white to indicate that you do not wish to speak, red to indicate that you have something you wish to ask or something you wish to say. To avoid these talks devolving into a shouting match, we ask that if someone is in the middle of speaking and they make a statement you disagree with or want to add to, you use your lights as opposed to interrupting them. Once you have been recognized, or if someone gets to what you wish to say before you, simply turn your light back to white. We arbitrators will be sure to give everyone who wishes to a chance to speak on every issue, but we ask you to keep your contributions both as relevant and as concise as possible. Representative Feig will take precedence over the rest of her delegation. Representative Kakoan has ceded her precedence to her father, Emperor Akok, though she will take precedence over the rest of her delegation. Any questions about any of that? None come. Excellent. Myself, Ambassador Yesh, and Ambassador Ong are acting as neutral, third-party arbitrators of these talks. We have collected points of contention to be negotiated from both parties, and, as each is settled, we will open the floor to the next and recognize delegates to speak. In turn, starting with the side that raised the issue, then passing to the other, then back, until all have had their say. We will not, I repeat, we will not settle disputes for you. Here, Emiko pauses and looks around sternly to impress the point on all. We aren't here to impose a peace from without, but to facilitate a peace from within. We may make suggestions, but the resolutions of your grievances are yours to agree, with each other. Do not look to us to decide who is right or who is reasonable for you, because we will not. Her schoolmistress-like, preemptive admonishment over, Emiko looks around, as if daring any to challenge her. No one does. She relaxes and continues. When each point has been settled, our AI, Twiller, will add the agreed resolution to a digital copy of a peace treaty. When all points appear to be settled, the completed treaty will be read back to you to allow you the opportunity for revisions to it. Once both sides indicate that they are satisfied without further revision, 3 physical copies of that treaty will be made for the representatives to leave their marks on. 1 for the Twig to keep, 1 for the Vrakhand, and 1 to go to the ODR on Citadel. She winces slightly as she says, "Unfortunately, as the Twig have no written language, this document is required to be written in a language readable by neither Twig nor Vrackhand, so as not to put the Vrackhand at an unfair advantage in interpreting it. Galactic Standard is a language which lacks the necessary level of nuance for an application such as this. Therefore, the language agreed is the Terran lingua franca, English. This does mean that any disagreements regarding the application of the treaty will need to be arbitrated by Ambassadors Yesh and Ong, who will endeavor to do so impartially. If this is acceptable, I ask that all of you switch your lights to red now." Slowly, the white lights turn to red until only a few remain, which, after investigation, turn out not to be delegates who wish to raise objection, but ones who failed to understand the instruction. All lights finally turn red in unanimous agreement. "Wonderful," says Miyazaki, not sounding as pleased as I would have thought by that. "Now, there are exactly 53 items on the docket, 16 raised only by the Twig, 23 raised only by the Vrackhand, and 14 raised by both Twig and Vrackhand. We will start with the issues raised by both, and on each such issue, we will use a randomizer to determine whether the Twig or Vrackhand should be allowed to speak first. The first item for discussion is land use and access, and the randomizer has picked the Vrackhand to be the first to speak. Representative Kakoan, do you wish to take the floor?" Victor's perspective. "Victor, wake up!" comes a low, urgent voice, followed by a light slap to the left side of my face, making me jerk awake. "Ow! Ring!" I chide my fiancée, rubbing the point where the engagement ring I gave her struck me in the temple. "Sorry," Toon apologizes, briefly fiddling with the jewelry on her finger, like she'd forgotten it was there. "They're just about to sign the treaty. Didn't think you'd want to miss it." "Oh, really? Thought they spent a week on that trade provision, at least." Somehow, I definitely thought that negotiating the end of a millennia-old blood feud would be a little more glamorous." She presents her lower two palms and waves her top two over them, rubbing her fingers together like she's sprinkling them with fairy dust. I chuckle, realizing for the millionth time just how much I love this woman, and say, "Yeah, done now though," as 3 very fat documents are brought forward. Vig is offered a little movable staircase to bring her up to halfway between her height and Kakoan's, where the first of the 3 copies of the treaty are placed on a 45-degree angle, facing out. Yesh offers Vig a palm-sized ink pad, which she presses her clawed hand into. Kakoan's offered a cylinder of compressed charcoal by Ong to use as a writing instrument. The women bring their inked-up palm and pencil analog to their sides of the document, in unison. Then a shockwave rocks the ship. Vig is thrown from her step stool, and a lot of the Twig are knocked to the ground. Kakoan's kept her feet, but's looking around, alarmed. Rightly alarmed. I'm on my feet, adrenaline buzzing from my blood. There's only one thing that could have overcome the inertial dampening to rock the ship like that. Someone's just come out of warp, and they've done it practically on top of us. The astronomically low odds of anyone arriving in this system so close by chance, coupled with the extremely low odds of anyone even wanting to come to this system in the first place, means that was not an accident. "Twiller, status report." I'm cut off by a harsh, roboticized, Statesa-accented man's voice, hijacking the speakers and sounding crazed as he announced, "Hey, fuckers, I'm back. D'ya miss me?" "Oh," I groan. "Shit!"